Okay, just gonna give it a minute or two to start recording here. Make sure I have the right stuff up. I think I might not have the right. No, I do. I have the right thing there. But yeah, here we go. We are doing the rares this time. Gonna go through and put them on a tier list. So let's go ahead and start that now. Pretty much just gonna go from where I think the way this uploaded, it's going from Z to A, so that's fine. Just gonna look at the chat here, just in case we get some weirdness with the chat like we were having before. Not sure what that's about, but anyway, here we go. First we got Yeva, Nature's Herald. When this creature enters the battlefield or attacks, the first creature in hand gets +2/+2 trample and 5 mana. So this is actually a pretty decent little card. I played it a little bit. I thought it was a good way to get a little bit of mana into my hand there with the gaining 5 mana. So there are some things you can maybe do with it to make it kind of loopish with the gaining 5 mana when it enters the battlefield. But I haven't really spent a lot of time trying to see if that's possible. But this is a pretty good little card. I'm going to put this one in the fun category. I don't see it being like meta impacting necessarily, but I do think that you might see it here and there. Next up, we got Voidwalk. Exile target creature you control, then return the first creature card from your exile into play under your control with its reinforcements. I gotta make sure my mic is working. Okay, this time it is working. Great. So for this card, I did play with this a little bit, and the good thing about it is that you can use this on tokens and bring back a creature from that you exiled from your hand into play. So that is really a cool way to cheat things into play. So I personally think it can be meta impacting. Will it actually be? I don't know. I think it depends on how much people rate that ability to be able to do that. Personally, I'm going to use this card with tokens, but I don't know if other people will. So I'm going to put it in the fun category. I think it should be maybe meta impacting, but I don't know. We'll see. Okay, unexpected results. Draw a card. If that card is a land card, it gains full mana. Otherwise, that card gains half its mana. So it really is going to depend on what type of decks you put this in. If you put this in a land heavy deck, like I don't know, desert demo type of decks, this card can be really good for that. Maybe in a Sunken Citadel deck. This card has a lot of uses. I think that most people won't probably take advantage of that, but I do think this is an interesting card that can be useful. So I'm actually going to put this one in the situational category because it does take a specific build. But I do think that this card is pretty decent. Let's see, we got 2 arms. Creatures you control get +2/+2. Gain vigilance, reach, and lifelink until the beginning of your next turn. Draw a card. Yeah, that can be pretty good. I think, again, another situational card. I think this is not a bad card at all. It can be useful in certain situations. You want that vigilance, reach, and lifelink. Those are all pretty relevant abilities. And then drawing a card is also nice. I think it's a decent card. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the situational category. I don't think it's going to be widespread, but I think it can be a useful card. Thespian Stage. Support card land. When this support enters the board, pick one of the first 4 different land cards that is not named Thespian Stage from your library. Fetch that card and destroy the others, and that card gains full mana. Okay. At the beginning of your turn, convert 2 gems to one of the colors of your greatest mana bonuses. So as a continuous mana land, it's not great. Only converting 2 gems for 15 mana is not amazing. However, the fetch to gain full mana can be useful. This is probably going to be a good card to pair with, for example, what do you call it? Omen Path Journey, cards like 6, any card that deals with lands. This could be an interesting card. So it's not one I've given a lot of thought to yet. I've played around with it in mastery type of decks, and it wasn't really doing much there. So definitely a definition of a situational card. I think there is use for this one, but most people aren't going to be using it. Okay, Taste for Mayhem. When this support enters the board, your creatures get +2/+0. At the beginning of your turn, the first creature gets +2/+0. Then if you have 2 or less cards in your hand, your first creature gains double strike until end of turn. Well, that's actually a pretty decent buff. So your creatures get buffed to on entering the board. And then also every turn, they're also getting a +2/+2 buff. This can be a strong card at lower tiers. In Legacy, it's not going to do much. And the double strike is relevant. I think that this card is all right. It's playable for certain players, but probably not going to be really widespread use. I think it's a decent card for noobs. So if you happen to pull this and you're a newer player, I think you'll like it. So I'll put it in situational. Sword of the Params. Artifact equipment, 12 mana for 2 shields. When this support enters the board, and at the beginning of your turn, your first creature gets +3/+3 at the beginning of your next turn. Then the first multicolored spell on a card in your hand gains 5 mana. If you watched my Teferi first look, I was playing around with this and trying to figure out if I can make some sort of loop with it, with the spell card gaining 5 mana. I couldn't quite get it to work, and I tried a few things here and there, but they just didn't quite work. I wouldn't say this is an avoid card, but I don't see it being used very much. It can be useful. I think somebody's going to figure this card out, and then it will be more of a useful card. So for now, I'm putting it in the situational box. All right. Stab Wound. Support card, Enchantment Aura. So Daxos is probably taking a look at it. 3 shields for 12 mana. At the beginning of your opponent's turn, the first opposing creature gets -2/-2. Then your opponent loses 2 life. So this is like a baby Cruel Reality. I don't think that it's going to do enough to really warrant a spot on most people's decks. And I don't see a lot of people trying to build around this. I think it's just a little bit too weak for today's meta. So I'll put this in the avoid category. Our first rare to basically try not to pull. One sec here. It's a little bit cleaner. Stop it. All right. Okay. Where are we at here? Sphinx's Revelation. Okay. Sphinx's Revelation. Pick 2 of the first 4 cards from your library. Fetch those cards and destroy the others. Those cards gain half their mana. Gain X life. X is the amount of mana your cards would gain. I like this card. I played around with it a little bit. I think it's it's similar to like Hit the Mother Load, but for blue and white. Only thing is it doesn't make tokens, but it does gain you some life. So this can be a useful card in life gain decks. Cards that care about you gaining life. Template Bunnies, for example. This is a pretty good card. I'll put it in the meta impacting because I do think that it's a card worth using, and I think smart players will use it. Next, we got Spark Double. Reinforce target creature you control, then a random Vanguard support you control gains 2 shield. This is a classic, like, it sounds better than it is. I think newer players will probably see that reinforced target creature in control and really be drawn to it. And, you know, that's not a bad effect. But with the types of cards we have in Standard even right now, cards like Knowledge is Power, you probably want to play something like that instead. And then there are creatures that you do a lot of reinforcing as well. So you're probably going to not spend a lot of deck space on a card like this. The random Vanguard, we don't really have great Vanguards that you really need to pump their shields up so much. Things like Teferi and Tameo. I think this card would be much better in that meta. But Vanguards aren't that widespread right now, so I don't see this card making impact on the meta. I think I'm going to make this in a void. I think it's not worth chasing. Cella's Nea Evangel. Activate 2. Create a Saproling token and reinforce it 2 times. This can be an okay deck for, or this can be an okay card for token spawn decks. The Activate 2 is probably not going to be that often that you hit that, but it might be okay. I think that this is kind of more of a situational card. It's 6 mana, so it's pretty cheap, and it can make you a decent amount of tokens, but I don't think a lot of people are going to be playing it that much. Let me just make sure. Something. All right. Cool. Okay, where are we at? Sapphire Drake, 15 mana for a 4/4 blue creature Drake. When this creature enters the battlefield or is reinforced, your creatures get +3/+3 until end of turn. At the beginning of combat every turn, buff creatures you control gain flying until end of turn. Yeah, just one of those creatures that don't really bring much to the table. You're probably going to find much better cards to play with instead, even if you're a newer player. I guess if you're a new player, it's a fine card. But most people are not going to need that. Seal of the Guild Pact. 20 mana support card artifact with 3 shields. When the support enters the board and at the beginning of your turn, reduce the cost of each multicolored card in your hand by X until end of turn. X is equal to the number of colors on that card. So an all colors card will cost 5 mana less, I guess. At the beginning of combat on your turn, multicolored creatures get +Y until end of turn. And Y is the number of colors that creature have. Yeah, it's just for 20 mana to reduce your cards by a little bit. Over time, maybe you'll get back that mana investment, but I don't know. This doesn't seem like that a strong enough card in most decks to really build for. Maybe I would maybe try it in a deck that has tons of multicolored cards and see how it works for me. I'm gonna say this is probably situational. I think like colorless planeswalkers might be able to find a use for it, but for most people, I don't think it's going to be worth the mana investment and the deck space. Okay, Rootborn Defenses. I think I picked this one up. Spell card, 13 mana. Create 2 white Vigilant Knight tokens. Populate. Your creatures gain hexproof and prevent damage until the beginning of your next turn. It's got a lot of things that happen when you cast it. None of them being like amazing. Your creatures getting hexproof and prevent damage can help in some situations, but these cards that give you temporary, evergreens, they hardly ever are worth keeping for a really long time in your deck. So, I'm going to say this one is situational. You can maybe find a reason to use this card, but I don't know. I'm actually tempted to just put it as the avoid because for most people, those effects just aren't strong enough to justify space in the deck. Righteous Charge. Your creatures get +5/+5 and gain Berserker. I could see that being fun. You need to build the right deck for this to make sure that your creatures don't just die pretty easily, even with the +5/+5 buff. White giving your creatures Berserker is kind of interesting. I don't see that very often. This could be all right in an Ajani deck. You put this on, any of those prevent damage creatures like Phyrexian Vindicator, for example. So I'm going to say this one's situational. It's not a bad card, but most people aren't going to want to play with something like this. What do we got next? Oh, that's just what we had. Okay. Renounce the Guilds. Destroy all multicolored cards. For 22 mana, that's pretty expensive. It could be interesting. I don't know if a lot of people are going to want to play this card. I would say that this is probably a situational card because you'll have to build around it. I could see somebody building for it and then just kind of using it when they need to. But if they run into a mono planeswalker, they're less likely to have a lot of utility for it. But, it might be all right. Okay. Restore the Peace. Return all creatures, vanguards, and non-land supports in play to their owner's hand. So this is basically the return of what's it called? River's Rebuke. And what's even better about it is that it's also white. So white can use this spell. So this is an amazing card. I think that this is one of the chase cards of the set easily, if not my number one chase card, because strong defense is just super important right now. You could use something like this in black and white, red and white, green and white. Green and white needs cards like this too. Mono white. Mono white has a lot of board wipes actually right now. One-sided board wipes. So that's actually pretty good. And this thing is just one more super scary card to have to deal with. Yeah, this is an amazing card. it is going to be a god tier card. And you're going to see it everywhere. It's going to be meta impacting. Yeah, it's just going to be one of those cards that we're just going to have to prepare for. Pyre Wild Shaman. 3/1 Goblin Shaman. When this card is exiled from your hand during your turn, if it has 4 or more mana, target creature gets +3/+1 until the beginning of your next turn. At the beginning of your turn, if this card is in your graveyard, you may drain 4 mana from your hand. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. None of those are really worth even discussing. Just pretty weak overall. I know it's only 6 mana, but 6 mana that can be better spent elsewhere. Pariah Shield. 23 mana, 2 shields, artifact equipment. Whenever you take damage, you take 3 less damage instead. That's alright. At the beginning of combat on your turn, your creatures gain reach until the beginning of your next turn. Okay. Then each opposing creature loses trample until the beginning of your next turn. Interesting. Okay, so your creatures are going to be blocking, and they take 3 less damage when they block. Very situational card, but especially at that mana cost, you're gonna have to cheat it out. So if you have cards like Golden Wish to cheat it out, is this the type of card that you would want to use in a deck like that? Probably not. I think I'm probably gonna put this one in the avoid, just because it's so expensive to use. If it wasn't for the cost, maybe it'd be situational, but I think it's an avoid. Okay, where are we at here? Overwhelm. All your creatures get +3/+3 and trample. It does have a Convoke 8. It is 18 mana, but it has Convoke 8, so it can be excuse me. It can be reduced to 10 mana. But okay, it's a permanent buff and trample. Trample is a pretty relevant ability right now with things like Sabsunin, Phyrexian Vindicator still being in standard. It's a little pricey, but you're not going to play it if you don't have a creature on the board. So I think it just really depends. Yeah, definitely a situational card. I don't think it's great. It's probably even on the low end of that. All right, Ogre Slumlord. When a non-token creature dies... Okay, so it's 16 mana for 3/3 Ogre Rogue. When a non-token creature dies, create a rat token. At the beginning of your turn, your rat creatures gain Berserker and Death Touch. Interesting. So this can create its own little minions that will destroy a creature that does not have prevent damage or flying. And they are created by making rat tokens. 16 mana, though, is kind of a lot. It's kind of on the border of situational and avoid. I think I'm going to put it in the avoid category. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's situational because it might be a fun one to pair with Hellhole Rats. So there's some synergy there. So maybe I'll just put it there. I don't think it's great, but I don't think it's the worst card. It has some synergy. Next one here, Midnight Reaper. When a creature dies or loses a reinforcement, draw a card, then you lose 3 life. For 7 mana, it's a 3/2. I guess it's a way to draw cards in mono black, which is kind of relevant. But it's very conditional. It only works on a different trigger. So, yeah, it just doesn't bring enough to the table to make it worth using in most cases. So, putting it in avoid. Mizzix's Mastery, 14 mana, 2 shield. Support card. At the beginning of your turn, exile the first spell card from your graveyard. Then create the copy of that card in your hand. That copy gains half its mana. Okay. So this is one that would be good to play with Capricious Hellraiser, maybe. Because it deals with spells in your exile. I'm trying to think of anything else that would be relevant for this card. Maybe playing this with Expressive Iteration, for example. I think this can be an okay card. I think I'm going to put it in the situational category. Life from the Loam. 3 cost spell card. Return the first land card from your graveyard to your hand. Okay. At the beginning of your turn, if this card is in your graveyard, return this card from your graveyard to your hand and destroy the top 3 cards of your library. Interesting. If you could just keep casting it and destroying your library, think this is a situational card where you maybe want to play it with other spell or land heavy decks. Other than that, I don't see this being useful most places. I think this could be situationally a decent card. Depending, you kind of have to build it a lot of strategies around it, but that might be fun. I'll mess around with that once I get it. Okay, Merciless Eviction. Exile all creatures and supports. Exile all cards from graveyards. I think this is definitely an Amanatu card. Really strong board wipe. It comes in white and black. Yeah, this could be interesting. It's a good reset. I'm going to put this in meta impacting because I do think it is a strong card that I could see being used in certain decks a fair amount. Infernal Tutor. For 10 mana, pick one of the first 4 cards from your library, fetch that card. That card gains 6 mana. That's pretty good. That's kind of a talent of the telepath. Then if you have 2 or less cards in your hand, that card gains 6 mana. So that gives you a lot of good utility. I think this card is actually pretty good. Will a lot of people use it? Maybe. I think smart players will use it. Fetching in black like that is a solid ability, and I could see you using this in maybe spell looping type of decks. So yeah, I'm gonna say that's a meta impacting card. Immortal Servitude. Return the first 3 creature cards from your graveyard to play under your control. For 25 mana, I love that this is dual color. Because we have a card that's better than this for white, but we don't have a card this good for black. I think this is a great card. The 25 mana cost, if you have Mystical Teachings, you're gonna ignore that. If you have Volt Strider, things like that, it's a really strong card. Yeah, this is at least meta impacting. Is it God tier? I think it's like right on the cusp of being God tier, but it's definitely meta impacting. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the God tier. I think I do actually own this card. I haven't played it much, but it is a really good card that I think I will be using more often. It's like Rite of the Moth that Rite of the Moth lets you pick the 2 of the 4 in your graveyard, but this one just puts 3 in instead. Doesn't give them lifelink or death touch, but you also don't gain finality. So there's a little bit of a trade-off. But very good card, I would say. Illusionist Bracers. When you cast a creature card, if it doesn't have the knowledge element, create a copy of that card in your hand. That copy's power and toughness becomes 0. 0/1, and it gains a knowledge emblem and half its mana. Okay, so this is an interesting card. It's like colorless Virtue of Knowledge, but not quite as good, and it only works with creatures. So I do like this card. I do think it is probably in the fun category. I don't see this being like super meta impacting, but I do think that once Virtue of Knowledge and cards like that leave standard, you might see this card being played here and there. I do think it's got potential. Gyre Sage. Elf Druid, when a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it has greater power or toughness than this creature gets +1/+1. Activate to convert X gems to green. Then this creature gains can't block and can't attack till next turn or end of turn. X is this creature's power. Just too many hoops to jump through to get a pretty marginal amount of utility out of it. So I'm going to say it's a void. This is one that I did pull, so I played with it a little bit and it just didn't really do enough for me. Golgari Grave Troll, Troll Skeleton, 9 mana, 1/1 with Regenerate 2. When this creature enters the battlefield, this creature gets +X/+X. X is the number of creatures in your graveyard. When this creature is dealt damage, this creature gets -1, -0. At the beginning of your turn, if this card is in your graveyard, return this card to your graveyard to your hand, then destroy the top 6 cards of your library. So I was thinking that this might be a decent card to play with the restore cards from the last set, and just continuously trying to put it back into your graveyard. Yeah, you could. I think there are things you could do with it. I think this is kind of a fun card. It's one that I haven't done enough with, but I do think that it has potential to be a fun piece in one of those graveyard decks. Ghostway. Destroy all creatures, then create X white spirit tokens. X is the number of cards destroyed this way, including their reinforcements. So that's an interesting way of maybe creating a bunch of creature tokens for objectives, as well as serving as a creature board wipe. So I think this is kind of in between situational and fun for me. Creating a bunch of white spirit tokens could be a lot of fun, but I don't know. I think maybe I'm just going to put this in situational. I don't see it being used a ton, but it might. I'm running out of room in situational. I might have to do something about that. Eyes Everywhere. 13 mana blue enchantment with 4 shields. At the beginning of your turn, Surveil 2. When this support is exiled or destroyed, gain control of the first opposing creature with the greatest base cost. If you can't gain control of an opposing enchantment support. Okay, so it's got some pretty relevant abilities all around it. I like the Surveil 2. It can be useful there. Then it's got a nice little leave the battlefield effect. So I put this in the fun category. The Surveil 2 is more useful, I think, than people might realize. So you can really get to the cards you need by going through the ones you're coming up upon. Foundry Street Denizen, Goblin Warrior, 6 mana for 1/1. When a red creature enters the battlefield under your control, this creature gets +1/+0, then draw a card. I like the drawing a card on when red creatures enter the battlefield. This could be interesting. If you want to build kind of a red spell slinging, spell looping deck that runs off of like a Judith kind of deck. This is an interesting option for you there. I think this one is definitely a situational card because of that draw card. The buff is whatever. It's not that relevant to me. But I do think the drawing a card when a red creature enters play is really useful, especially in red. Dreadbore. 13 mana. Destroy target creature and destroy an opposing Vanguard support. So I'm not sure if those work independently from each other. If somebody knows, maybe let me know. This is just a nice little utility card. Red getting another destroy target creature type of card. It's similar to Molten Collapse, except it's targeted. And it does double duty. So I think this might be meta impacting just because it's a destroying spell card that has multiple functions. So those are always popular. Dread Malkin. Zombie Cat with Menace, 5 mana, a 1/1. When a non-token creature you control dies, this creature gets +2/+2. Gosh, that's just too slow. If maybe it started with a bigger body, it might be more useful, but I don't see this card making much of an impact anywhere. So let's put this in the void. At the beginning of your turn, create a red dragon token. For 23 mana, though. God, that's just too much. 2 colors there, at least. Yeah, this would be situational if it was a cheaper cost, but at 23 mana, though, I would say that's not a chaseable card. Oops, a mythic made it into this thing. I don't know if I went over this card in my tiers for the mythic masterpiece cards. So we'll just talk about it here then. At the beginning of your turn, draw a card, then you lose X life. That card gains full mana. X is that card's base mana cost. Interesting. That can be dangerous, but it also really good. Gosh, I don't know. Jury's out on this one. I think this is probably more of a fun card because I just think that. Well, actually, let me just put this in the. Here's my tier list for this. I'll put this over here in my Mythic Masterpiece review there. So there we go. I have to play that card to know for sure. I'm intrigued by it, but Copy Enchantment, 12 mana for a spell card. Your enchantment support with the greatest shield gains 2 shields. Okay. That might be good with an Omni deck. Then create a copy on the board under your control of the opposing support with the highest base mana cost. Okay, that is good tech against an Omni deck saying you survive. But this is an interesting card. Would I use it in standard though? I don't know. Does this end up in the situational category? I suppose so. I have to make some room here. Make this smaller. Okay. Gives me some room. I'm going to put it in the situational category. I just don't see it being like super useful across the board. But it isn't bad. Cinder Elemental. 8 mana. 2/2 elemental. At the beginning of your turn, increase its level by 2. When its creature attacks, deal X damage to a random opposing target. X is this card's level. Okay, that's not bad for 8 mana. I could see that getting pretty big. Yeah, I don't hate this card. I think the price is right for what you get out of it. So I'm gonna put this in the fun category. Coiling Oracle, Snake Elf Druid, 9 mana, 1/1, blue and green. When this creature enters the battlefield, convert 5 gems to your Planeswalker's colors, then draw a card. Okay, so this is basically a creature disguise. Yeah, spell disguised as a creature. I don't know if that's quite strong enough to make it into most decks. Although, maybe in a looping type of deck, a blue loop deck, converting 5 gems to your Planeswalker's colors and drawing a card is pretty solid. It's not going to be meta impacting. I do think this is going to be I'll put this in the fun category. I think it's worth playing around with and figuring out what you could do with it and how strong it actually is in practice or in use. So that's where fun cards go. Bred for the Hunt. At the beginning of your turn, target creature you control gets +1/+1. At the beginning of combat on your turn, your buff creature gets +2/+2. Okay. And gain trample until end of turn. Okay. When a buff creature control deals combat damage to your opponent's Planeswalker, draw a card. Okay, this is decent. You're getting some card draw on attack, which I do like. There are a lot of cards there are a lot of decks where I like having that option. Having a lot of cards in my hand at the beginning of my turn can be useful for a lot of different reasons. So this is a pretty decent card. I don't think it's like necessarily like one you're going to have a blast playing, but in my tier list, this kind of is in the middle ground category. So I'm going to put it in the fun category and just take that for what it means. Not necessarily literally. Chromatic Lantern, support card, 20 mana, 3 shields. People are saying this should be an artifact card because it is in paper, so hopefully they change it to that. At the beginning of your turn, your colored mana bonuses become 6 until end of turn. So that's actually really nice, especially for colorless Planeswalkers. Planeswalker like Yugen is one that's going to be great for this. Karn the Great Creator. Yeah, I think this has the potential to be meta impacting. The 20 mana cost is a bit steep, but if you have something like Mana Crypt, get it out quickly, and it starts getting you utility on your next turn. I think that's pretty good. So I'm putting it in meta impacting because I do think people are going to want to play that card, even with its high mana cost. Bottled Cloister. Support card, artifact, another colorless artifact. At the beginning of your opponent's turn, exile all cards from your hand. At the beginning of your turn, draw 2 cards. Those cards gain half their mana. Okay, I think this card is fun. I played around with it a little bit. I didn't play it in the right types of decks. I think this card is good when you have a deck that's cheap, that's got a lot of cheap spells, or, cheap cards just in general, because then you don't need to spend a lot of mana to put the cards in your hand. So it's kind of like old school Outcast, where you would just get cards in your hand, they would get outcast, and then you'd have to do something with them before your turn ends, or else they go away. So it's kind of doing that for all cards. So I think it's definitely a fun card that I need to play around with and make it actually work better for me. Yeah. So this can also help fill up your exile for Aminatu. So you can draw a bunch of cards. This exiles them from your hand, and then when you're ready, when you have your third ability, you just put all those cards into play. So a lot of different ways of playing this. I think it's a card that's worth exploring further. So I'm gonna put it in the fun category. We're almost there. Almost at the end of the rares here. Bomber Corpse. Human Soldier 1/2 for 11 mana. At the beginning of of each combat, if you control one or more creatures, deal X times 2 damage to your opponent's planeswalker. X is the number of creatures you control. Okay, so this works against, this triggers on both players' turns. So that's pretty cool. The most you're going to do is 3, though, because it's not including reinforcements. So dealing an extra 3 damage to your opponent's planeswalker is probably not enough. I guess eventually it will stack up, but even if you played this with something like Twin Flame Tyrant, doing 6 every turn, it's not bad, but is it really worth the thing? I don't know. There might be something you can build for this if it's if you look to see in your library what else you have that triggers when you do creature damage or damage from a creature. So something like Fire Servant, Twin Flame Tyrant. That might be fun, but I don't know. I'm going to put this in the situational category. It could be better than I think, but probably not amazing. It might just be a fun one to mess around with. Etherling. Shapeshifter 4/5 for 15 mana. Activate 3. This creature gets +1/+1 at the beginning of your next turn. Activate 1. This creature gains Vigilance till the beginning of your next turn. Activate 1 blue. This creature gains Unblockable until the beginning of your next turn. And then activate 1 blue. This creature gains Prevent Damage until the beginning of your next turn. So this card is probably alright with a deck that is just destroying the board a lot. But it's really just, I don't know if it's bringing enough to the table for that amount of mana, 15 mana cost. I think it can be maybe fun. You can maybe build for this and see what you get out of it. I'm tempted to put it a void, but I think there is maybe potential for some fun. So I'm putting in situational. Angelic Skirmisher, creature angel, 14 mana for a 4/4. At the beginning of each combat, your creatures gain first strike and lifelink until end of turn. I like that. So if you're playing with creatures that can block, that first strike is relevant, as is the lifelink. So I think this is a cool card. It's an angel, so it's relevant for those planeswalkers and abilities too. And yeah, I think that this is just a pretty fun little card. Oh, I already did Angelic Skirmisher. Okay, this is the last one on my list here. If I missed one, let me know. But I don't think so. Advent of the Worm, 15 mana spell card, green and white. Create 2 worm tokens, then those creatures gain trample. Worms are 5/5s. I've been having a lot of fun with a token deck because I've been playing it with I think it's Assemble the Legion. I think is the name of that masterpiece that that reinforces your tokens every turn. So this is a great card to pair with with that card. So this card is pretty fun if you have a way to populate. So if we get more populate cards, this card would be even better. But the ones that we have are all right. And yeah, I like this card. I've been playing around with it, and I think it's fun. All right, so we got total of 7 chase rares. 2 being like must-haves for your collection, and that is I'll show you again. That is this one, Restore the Peace, and what was the other one? Immortal Servitude. So these are the cards that I think you should spend resources trying to get, especially when this set is craftable. Spend your orbs getting these 2, and I think you'll be set. And then the other 5 I think are worth looking at, but there's those. Because I think that they'll be meta impacting. Fun cards are ones that if you get them, try building for them, building around them, building with them, etc. Situational are ones maybe you try to build for them, but don't expect anything amazing. And then the bottom tier are just cards that you probably won't ever find a good use for them. Or it's just, if you do, it's just really not ending up worth it. So there you have it. There is the tier list for rares. Hope you enjoyed that. It was fun for me to go through and really get more familiarized with the cards, and keeps in mind things that I want to do with them once I pull them. So hope you enjoyed that. I did, and I will see you again soon. Probably do a Teferi review soon enough. But until then, have a good one and enjoy.